Russell, we're getting used to speaking to you in hotel rooms. You're joining us from Cape Town in South Africa for the Earthshot Prize. We will get to that in a second. But first, a very interesting report that's just dropped about the King not wanting to be dragged into Harry's row with the Home Office. What can you tell us?
Well, indeed, Cara. Well, great to see you again from foreign climes. But this really is an interesting story about Prince Harry and his relationship with his father, the King. Of course, he's had this long-running court case with the Home Office, taking the British government to court over his security arrangements. And of course, you will remember the British government said that he wasn't eligible for security when in the UK and visiting with his family, which has caused quite a stir for Harry. He said that he doesn't feel that it's safe enough to bring his wife and children back to the UK, and he's been staying in hotels rather than staying at Buckingham Palace. So the issue for the King is, does he start getting into conversations with Harry about this? It could create something called legal jeopardy for the King. Of course, Prince Harry has quite a propensity to repeat private conversations between himself and other members of the royal family. So it could be a real big legal issue for the King if he was to discuss this, and those conversations were to be aired in a court of law. So the King is caught between a rock and a hard place, it seems, between having a relationship with his son and then obviously trying to help him out to get him to come to the country more often.
And Russell, this coincides with a report about Harry's last trip where, as you say, he felt more secure in a hotel rather than Buckingham Palace. Is that trying to leverage this situation somehow?
Well, it's interesting. That's an interesting point as well, because, when he did visit here in May for the 10th of UK in May for the 10th anniversary of the Invictus Games, he decided to stay in a hotel once more. And we understand that he had asked the palace for use of a royal residence. There was a bit of a gap between the correspondence, but he was able and was offered a chance to stay in one of the apartments at Buckingham Palace. He decided to turn that down, interestingly, and stay at a hotel, citing once more security reasons. And to me, this doesn't really make sense. I mean, how on earth can Harry be far more safer in a hotel in London than staying behind palace walls where he'd be afforded the royalty protection? And again, Harry's point falls down on several notions, because he has been told that it will be on a case-by-case basis if he's coming to see the King, or he's coming here on sort of official family business like the coronation, which he did. He will be afforded that royalty protection. So, Harry is sort of digging his heels in with the British government here, and it'll be interesting to see how long this saga runs on for.
Channel 4 Dispatches documentary has revealed details about the royal family's finances, including reports that private royal estates have received millions of pounds of income from public bodies and charities.
Yeah, it's been claimed that the Duchies of Lancaster and Cornwall portfolios have generated almost £50 million.
Well, the contracts with public bodies said to include a £37 million agreement with the Ministry of Justice, an £11.4 million deal between Guy's and St Thomas's NHS Trust. This is what appeared on the programme last night.
Charles and William aren't telling you about their secret millions.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for paying your rent every now and then.
Their private estates, the Duchies of Lancaster and Cornwall, make Charles and William £50 million a year. But they have repeatedly refused to reveal exactly which properties they own.
Can we have a report on the list of properties?
I don't see why.
And details of how these estates make their staggering profits and from where have remained secret until now.
Wow. Let's talk to the King's former butler, Grant Harold, who joins us now. We're talking about private estates, private companies, in effect. I'm not really shocked that they're making money. That's the whole point of them, isn't it?
Morning, and morning, Stephen. Absolutely, I'm not shocked either. And also, as a former butler, I was also a duchy rentee. I used to rent one of the properties, and we were always aware of the property portfolio. I don't think it's kind of a bit news thing. Obviously, part of the, if you like, the business side is these two duchies, Cornwall and Lancaster, and the late Queen obviously was the Duke as well of Lancaster, and now you've got the the prince was obviously, or the king, when he was prince, had the duchy. And these properties, portfolios as well, I mean, obviously they make money. I mean, but they've been around for, I think they go back to George III, if not before. So, and even back then, they didn't make money. Where obviously the royal family have turned them into businesses and do really well from them. But it's not kind of hidden money or anything. It's all kind of out there. So I'm not too sure. Obviously, they've done this research, and maybe people are unaware of it. But I was certainly aware, and other members of the household, because as an employee and as somebody that rented, the only thing I thought it was quite funny when I did rent the property was I was warned that if you don't have a will and you're in a duchy property, your assets belong to the duchy when you die because you don't have a will. But that's one of these really old laws that's never kind of been changed, if you like, which used to kind of make me smile. So that's the only thing when I found that, I remember thinking, right, I need a will. From my point, God forbid, if suddenly we lost the monarchy, that's the business, if you like. That's the business side. So they've been really sensible with it. And as you said, it's been around for centuries. The Crown Estates also, which is a big part of the, if you like, the business side, that was handed obviously over. The money from that gets handed over to the Treasury, which goes back again to the time of George III. And then in return, I believe it's called the sovereign grant, where they get, if you like, a wage. And that's kind of the money they get for the kind of the duties, if you like, the work that they do. The duchies is completely separate. These are private holdings that they've had for centuries. There was one of the things that came out about how they acquired them. That's historical, with all these kind of things. There's historical things behind it as to how they got them or why they've got them. The point is that they've turned them into successful businesses. They do really well. And there's nothing unusual about it. I mean, they say, they've got properties, people pay rent. I paid rent for one of those properties, and other people pay rent. And it's just a business, as simple as that. But obviously this documentary has kind of looked into it to find out, where they have properties and what kind of money is made. But as you just said, nothing about it really surprised me or shocked me.
His programme tonight. It's also in the Mirror and other publications and media outlets as well. This is the Duchy Files, an investigation by the Sunday Times and Channel 4 Dispatches revealing full details of the vast ancient estates owned by the King and the Prince William, and the business deals struck to fund their lifestyles. 5,410 land holdings, mineral rights, properties held by the Duchy of Lancaster on behalf of the King and the Duchy of Cornwall for the Prince, and then examined, the Sunday Times and Dispatches have examined business agreements and leases linked to them. They show the duchies generate profits by charging the Army, Navy, hospitals and prison service, schools and councils for the rights to use lands, rivers and seashores seized for the duchies in medieval times. It raised 27.4 billion for the King, 23.6 million for, 23.6 million for William to pay for their private homes, personal income and staff. They operate as commercial landlords, the Sunday Times says, while holding a special status, exempting them from paying corporation tax on their profits and capital gains tax on assets they sell. Charles and William do voluntarily pay income tax on the money they receive from the duchies, minus deductions for business and household expenses. So it's a really, really interesting one, and there's a lot to this, and I want to get into that with Caroline Aston, who's the royal commentator. Caroline, I suppose, let's get into the meat of the story first. What do you make of it?
Well, I mean, I think the word here is revelation, isn't it? I mean, these are big figures, big facts. But of course, there's always been a degree of opaqueness about royal accounting. Sometimes I don't think Parliament has always been totally aware. There are certainly things that have been off the record, and let's forget, it's not that long since the royal family started to pay income tax, like the rest of us. The Queen agreed to do that at the time of the fire at Windsor Castle. So it's an interesting programme, but of course you made the point from medieval times. This is like a huge snowball of finance, of property, this enormous package that has built up over 1,000 years or so of monarchy. But of course we live in a world of revelation. The Republican movement is quite strong. We've seen demonstrations. And of course, this story, this programme, coming out at a time when we had Prince William in his 2-part documentary talking about working to get rid of homelessness over 5 years. And then suddenly, riding on the back of that, we have this programme about the vast number of properties and possessions that are part of the royal portfolio. It's a very interesting juxtaposition, really, isn't it? I'm all for knowing what's going on out there. And as a modern royal family, I feel that we do have to have this openness. But how you deconstruct this snowball, this package, and don't forget, of course, the income from the Crown estates is rendered up to the government, who issue a lot of it back in the form of the sovereign grant, the money the royals use to run, well, the business of being the monarchy. I'm going to be tuning in with great interest to see what they've uncovered in the royal coffers.
Let's talk about the timing of this in just a second, but the investigation found the duchies impose levies for the right to cross rivers or dump waste in them, offload cargo onto the shore, run cables under their beaches, operate lifeboats in a public lavatory, and even dig graves. They make revenue from toll bridges, ferries, sewage pipes, pubs, churches, village halls, distilleries, gas pipelines, rental homes, and wind turbines. And you mentioned the documentary about William this week wanting to end homelessness. There'll be a lot of people who say, well, you get £23.6 million a year from historic properties that you've inherited. Maybe some of that money could go to housing homeless people, for example, or putting your money where your mouth is. And I know Prince William does a lot of very good work, and I'm not disputing that for a second, Caroline, but I just wonder whether a royal is the right person to have this, to be talking about this in the week that this has been revealed.
Well, he certainly thinks so. It is a paradox, of course, that you have someone who has this vast reserve of property, money, all this stuff coming in, who is fronting this up. But of course, he said, someone's got to do it. I want to use my position, my public position, to front this up. Just rather like his brother was the poster boy of the Invictus Games. Very different thing, of course, because that wasn't